Before we begin this emotional journey, take a moment to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because every story here carries a lesson about life, family, and the choices we make. Now let's begin. Chapter 1. The Man Behind the Corner Office. In the beautiful city of Boston, Massachusetts, USA, there lived a 55-year-old man named David Michael Harrison. For more than 30 years, David worked in the banking industry. He was the chief operating officer, COO, of a large local bank called Citizens Bank. People saw him as a powerful executive. He had a beautiful office on the top floor. He wore expensive suits. He attended important meetings. Thousands of employees knew his name. But behind his success was a story nobody knew. David was a man who sacrificed almost everything to reach the top. His family photos sat on his office shelf. But many of those moments in the photos happened without him. His daughter's first school day. His son's graduation. His wife's birthday. He was always busy. He always said, "Just one more year, then I will have more time." But life kept moving. Chapter 2. The Young Dream. 30 years earlier, David was just a young man. He grew up in a small house with his mother. His father worked hard but never had enough money. One night, David saw his father sitting alone. He asked, "Dad, are you worried?" His father smiled and said, "Sometimes life is difficult, but a good person always finds a way." Those words stayed in David's heart. David promised, "One day, I will build a better life for my family." At 25, he started working at a bank. He stayed late. He learned everything. While others went home, David studied. While others relaxed, he worked. Slowly, he climbed higher. Employee, manager, director. Finally, coup. Chapter 3. The Unexpected Morning. One Monday morning, David arrived at the bank. Something felt different. The employees were quiet. His assistant Sarah Miller walked toward him. "Mr. Harrison, the board members are waiting for you." David entered the meeting room. The CEO looked serious. "David, please sit down." David noticed a folder on the table. He already knew something was wrong. The CEO said, "After a major company restructuring, today will be your final day as COO." The room became silent. David looked at the window. The city he worked so hard for was outside. But suddenly, he felt like a stranger. 30 years of dedication ended in one conversation. Chapter 4. The Last Walk Through the Bank. David walked through every department. The employees stopped working. Everyone knew. A young employee named Alex Turner came to him. "Sir, you are leaving?" David nodded. Alex said, "You changed my life. When I made mistakes, you didn't fire me. You taught me." David smiled. "Remember, Alex, a good leader doesn't create followers. A good leader creates better people." Chapter 5. The Woman at the Door. Before leaving, a woman entered the bank. Her name was Anna Williams. She was an old customer. David recognized her. "Mrs. Williams, it's been years." Anna smiled. "I came because I heard you were leaving." David asked, "Why did you come?" She answered, "Because I wanted to thank you." David looked confused. Anna said, 20 years ago, my small business was failing. Everyone rejected me." She continued, "But you gave me a chance. You believed in me. Today, my company has 50 employees." David became emotional. He realized the biggest achievements of his life were not written in reports. They were written in people's lives. Chapter 6. The Empty Office. After leaving the bank, David went home. The house was quiet. His wife Rachel Harrison looked at him. "You look different," David said. "I don't know who I am without my job." Rachel sat beside him. David, you were a great COO, but you were also a husband, a father, a friend. Those words hurt, because they were true. Chapter 7. The Second Chance. The first months of retirement were difficult. David felt useless. Then one day, he visited a community center. He saw young people trying to understand finances. He started teaching them. Saving. Planning. Building a future. Soon, many young people came to learn from him. A teenager asked, "Mr. Harrison, why are you helping us?" David smiled. "Because someone helped me when I was young." Chapter 8. The Real Success. 5 years later, David visited his old bank. A young manager greeted him. "Mr. Harrison." David smiled. "Do people still remember me?" The manager answered, "Everyone does. Your office was replaced. Your position was given to someone else. But your impact stayed." David looked around. He finally understood. A title can disappear. A job can end. But the good we do stays forever. Ending message. Many people spend their whole life trying to become important. But the truly successful person is the one who becomes valuable in other people's lives. David Harrison retired as a COO, but he never retired from being a good human being. The end. The man everyone trusted. In the peaceful town of Greenville, South Carolina, USA, there lived a 55-year-old man named Thomas William Anderson. For 30 years, Thomas worked as a bank manager at a local branch of J.P. Chase Bank. People did not come to the bank only for money. They came to meet Thomas. Because Thomas listened. He understood. He cared. Every morning, he opened the bank doors at 8 a.m. The first thing he did was look around and make sure everyone was okay. His employees often joked, "Mr. Anderson, you are a bank manager, not a family doctor." Thomas smiled and replied, "Money problems are often heart problems. People need someone who understands them." Chapter 2. The Secret Behind His Kindness. Nobody knew why Thomas was so kind. Years ago, when he was young, his father lost his job. His family struggled. They had little money. One day, Thomas's father went to a bank asking for help. But the bank employee treated him badly. He said, "If you don't have money, why are you wasting our time?" Young Thomas never forgot those words. That day he promised himself, "One day, I will work in a bank and make sure nobody feels helpless." That promise became his life. Chapter 3. The Letter on His Desk. After 30 years of service, Thomas came to work one normal morning. But something was different. His assistant Emily Carter looked sad. "Good morning, Mr. Anderson." Thomas smiled. "Emily, why do you look worried?" She stayed quiet. When Thomas reached his office, he saw a white envelope. He opened it. His hands became still. The letter said, "Due to organizational changes, today will be your final day as branch manager." Thomas sat quietly. 30 years. Thousands of customers. A lifetime of memories. All ending with one letter. Chapter 4. The Last Day. Thomas walked through the bank slowly. He touched his old desk. The same desk where he signed thousands of documents. The same place where he helped people. A young employee named Michael came to him. "Sir, are you leaving?" Thomas smiled. "Yes, Michael." Michael's eyes filled with tears. "But who will teach us?" Thomas replied. "Never forget this. A good banker doesn't only protect money. A good banker protects trust." Chapter 5. The Old Woman's Visit. Before leaving, an old woman entered the bank. Her name was Margaret Wilson. She was 82 years old. Thomas recognized her immediately. "Mrs. Wilson, how are you?" She smiled. "I came because I heard you were leaving." Thomas became quiet. Margaret held his hand. 30 years ago, when my husband died, I had no idea how to manage anything, she continued. You sat with me for 2 hours and helped me. Her voice started shaking. You were the first person who made me feel I was not alone. Thomas looked down. He was trying not to cry. Chapter 6. The Truth He Never Knew. After Margaret left, Thomas received hundreds of messages. Customers wrote, You helped my family. You believed in me. You gave me hope. Thomas realized something. All these years, he thought he was just doing his job. But people saw something much bigger. They saw kindness. Chapter 7. The Empty House. After retirement, Thomas returned home. For the first time in decades, he had nowhere to go. The next morning, he woke up early, put on his suit, then remembered. He was retired. His wife Linda Anderson saw him standing silently. She said, Thomas, you spent 30 years taking care of strangers. Now let us have time with you. Those words touched him. Chapter 8. The Final Gift. 1 year later, Thomas received a package. Inside was a book. The title, The Man Who Made Banking Human. It was written by hundreds of his former customers. The first page said, Dear Thomas, you taught us that success is not about how much money we collect, but how many hearts we touch. Thomas cried. Final ending voiceover. At 55, Thomas Anderson lost his job as a bank manager. But he discovered something more valuable than a position. He discovered that a person's true wealth is not in a bank account. It is in the memories people carry after you are gone. Moral: jobs have retirement dates, but kindness never retires. The last day at the bank, a 55-year-old man's new beginning. In the quiet town of Springfield, Illinois, USA, there lived a man named Michael Anderson. He was 55 years old and had spent almost his entire life working at a local bank called Chase Bank. For 32 years, Michael arrived at the bank every morning before sunrise. He wore the same dark blue suit, carried his old leather briefcase, and greeted every customer with a warm smile. People in the town did not see him as just a bank employee. They saw him as a friend. Good morning, Mr. Anderson, customers would say. Michael always replied, A good day starts with a good heart. He helped young couples open their first accounts, guided small business owners, and quietly supported people who were struggling. But time never stops. One Monday morning, Michael entered the bank and noticed a small envelope on his desk. It was from the manager. His hand shook slightly as he opened it. Dear Michael, after 32 years of dedicated service, today will be your final working day. The bank wants to honor your commitment and wish you a happy retirement. Michael looked around his office. The old chair. The family photos. The small plant near the window. Everything reminded him of the years he had spent there. A young employee named David Miller walked in. Mr. Anderson, are you leaving us? Michael smiled. Yes, David. Today is my last day. David looked surprised. But you are the person who taught me everything. Michael replied. A job ends, but the lessons we share never end. That afternoon, the bank organized a small farewell party. Customers came with flowers and letters. An old woman named Mary Johnson held Michael's hand and said, When my husband passed away, you helped me understand my finances. You were not just a banker. You were family. Michael became emotional. He realized something important. He thought he spent his life working for a bank. But actually, he spent his life touching people's lives. After leaving the bank, Michael returned home. The first few weeks were difficult. No alarm clock. No office. No customers waiting. The house felt strangely quiet. One evening, he sat outside watching the sunset. His wife, Sarah Anderson, sat beside him. Michael, you spent years taking care of everyone else. Now it is time to take care of yourself. Those words changed him. Michael started volunteering at a community center. He taught young people about money, honesty, and responsibility. A few months later, a young man named James came to him. "Mr. Anderson, I got my first job today. I remembered your advice." Michael smiled. "What advice?" James answered. "You told me money is important, but character is more valuable." Michael looked at the sunset and smiled. At 55, he finally understood. A career can end. A position can disappear. A workplace can close. But the kindness we leave behind continues forever. The last day at the bank was not the end of Michael Anderson's story. It was the first day of a new chapter. Moral: a person's true success is not measured by the years they work, but by the lives they improve. Title: The Old Banker's Secret, a 55-year-old man's final working day. In a small American town called Cedar Falls, Iowa, USA, there lived a man named Robert William Carter. Robert was 55 years old and worked at a local bank called Wells Fargo for more than 30 years. Every morning at 7:30, Robert opened the bank doors. He knew almost every customer by name. "Good morning, Mrs. Taylor. How is your son doing, Mr. Brown? Congratulations on your new business, young man." Robert was not just a bank officer. He was someone people trusted. Many years ago, Robert started working at the bank when he was only 25. At that time, he had one dream. "I want to build a life where people remember me for my kindness." He was never the richest man. He never drove an expensive car. He lived in a simple house with his wife Linda Carter. But he had something money could not buy: respect. One rainy morning, Robert entered the bank and saw everyone looking at him strangely. His manager, Thomas Reed, walked toward him. "Robert, can we talk in my office?" Robert sat down. Thomas placed a small box on the table. "What is this?" Robert asked. Thomas smiled. "This is a gift from all of us." Robert looked confused. "Why?" Thomas replied. "Because today is your final day." Robert became silent. After 30 years, the journey was ending. He looked through the window at the bank lobby. The same place where he had spent thousands of mornings. The same place where he helped people. He remembered a young man who came years ago with no money and no hope. Robert gave him advice and helped him start saving. That young man later became a successful business owner. He remembered a single mother who could not understand her bills. Robert patiently helped her. He remembered hundreds of small moments. Not every success was written in numbers. Some success was written in people's hearts. During the farewell ceremony, Thomas said, "Robert taught us that banking is not only about money. It is about trust." Everyone clapped. Robert stood up and said, "When I first came here, I thought I was building my career. Today I understand. I was building relationships." After retirement, Robert felt lost for some time. He missed the sound of the bank doors opening. He missed the familiar faces. One day, his grandson Ethan Carter asked, "Grandpa, are you sad because you don't work anymore?" Robert smiled. "No, Ethan. I am happy because I finally have time for the things I delayed." He started fishing again. He spent more time with his family. He helped young people in his town learn about saving money and making good choices. Years later, a young banker visited him. "Mr. Carter, I work at the bank now. People still talk about you." Robert looked surprised. "After all these years?" The young banker smiled. "Yes. They say there was once a banker who cared more about people than profits." Robert looked at the sky. He realized something. A job may have an ending date, but a good person's impact has no retirement. Moral: your position may disappear one day, but your kindness can stay forever. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because every story we share has a powerful life lesson. Today's story is about a man who reached the highest level of success, but discovered that money and power are not the biggest achievements in life. Chapter 1: The Man at the Top. In Seattle, Washington, USA, there lived a 55-year-old man named Jonathan Robert Miller. Jonathan was the Chief Operating Officer, COO, of one of America's biggest technology companies, Microsoft. He was one of the most respected leaders in the company. His office was on the 32nd floor of a huge glass building. Every morning, hundreds of employees waited for his decisions. He managed thousands of workers. He handled major business operations. People looked at him and thought, he has everything. A powerful position, a successful career, a luxurious lifestyle. But behind the success was a man who was tired. Chapter 2. The Price of Success. Jonathan did not become successful easily. When he was 24, he had nothing. He lived in a small apartment. He worked 2 jobs. During the day, he worked at a company. At night, he studied business. His dream was simple. I want to build a life where my family never struggles. Years passed. He worked harder than everyone. He missed vacations. He missed family dinners. He missed his children growing up. His wife Elizabeth Miller often said, Jonathan, one day you will have everything. But will you still have time to enjoy it? Jonathan always replied, just a little longer. But a little longer became 30 years. Chapter 3. The Shocking News. One Monday morning, Jonathan entered his office. His assistant Sophia Clark looked worried. Mr. Miller, the board members are waiting. Jonathan entered the meeting room. The CEO looked at him. Jonathan, this is difficult. Jonathan sat down. The CEO placed a document on the table. We are changing our leadership structure. Today will be your final day as CEO. Jonathan froze. The man who controlled billion-dollar decisions suddenly had no position, no office, no title, no meetings. After 30 years, his career ended in one sentence. Chapter 4. The Final Walk. Jonathan walked through the company one last time. The employees stood silently. A young engineer named Ryan Carter approached him. Sir, are you leaving? Jonathan smiled. Yes, Ryan. Ryan looked sad. You were the reason I became better. Jonathan asked. Why? Ryan replied. When I failed my first project, everyone blamed me. You gave me another chance. Jonathan said. Remember, Ryan, great leaders don't destroy mistakes. They build people from them. Chapter 5. The Secret Letter. Before leaving his office, Jonathan found an old envelope. It was from his father. He had forgotten about it. The letter said, Son, I hope you become successful, but never become so successful that you forget who you are. Jonathan read those words again and again. For the first time in years, he realized something. He had built a company career, but he had forgotten parts of his own life. Chapter 6. Coming Home. That evening, Jonathan returned home early. His wife Elizabeth was surprised. You're home before dinner? Jonathan smiled sadly. I don't have work anymore. Elizabeth looked at him. Then she hugged him. Maybe life is giving you a chance you never gave yourself. Jonathan became emotional. Chapter 7. A New Mission. After retirement, Jonathan could have traveled. He could have lived a luxury life. But he chose something different. He started a program helping young entrepreneurs. He taught them how to lead, how to build teams, how to stay humble. A young woman named Emma asked, Mr. Miller, why are you teaching us? Jonathan smiled. Because success is useless if you cannot help someone else succeed. Chapter 8. The Surprise Return. 3 years later, Jonathan visited his old company. A new CEO welcomed him. Mr. Miller, people still talk about you. Jonathan laughed. About my old position? The new CEO shook his head. No. About the people you helped. Jonathan looked around the building. The office had changed. The leadership had changed. But the values he created remained. Final message. Titles disappear. Companies change. Positions are replaced. But the kindness, lessons, and lives we improve can stay forever. Jonathan Miller lost his billion-dollar COO position. But he found something more valuable. Time, family, and a legacy. YouTube automation long story. Before we start this emotional story, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications for more inspiring life stories. Sometimes the richest people are not those who have the most money. Sometimes the richest people are those who never lose their kindness. This is the story of a poor 55-year-old man whose job ended, but whose goodness changed many lives. Chapter 1. The Old Worker. In a small town in Ohio, USA, lived a 55-year-old man named Henry Thomas Walker. Henry was not a businessman. He was not famous. He did not own a big house. For 25 years, he worked as a maintenance worker at a large office building. Every morning, before everyone arrived, Henry cleaned the halls, fixed broken things, and made sure the building was ready. People walked past him every day. Some said hello. Some ignored him. But Henry always smiled. Because he believed. A person's value is not decided by their job. Chapter 2. A Difficult Life. Henry grew up poor. His father died when he was young. His mother raised him alone. They struggled to pay bills. Henry started working at a young age. He never had the chance to study. But he had a big heart. When he got his first salary, He did not buy anything expensive. He bought medicine for his mother. Years later, he married Susan Walker. They lived a simple life. Their biggest dream was not luxury. Their dream was peace. Chapter 3. The Bad News. One cold morning, Henry arrived at work. His manager Daniel Brown called him into the office. Henry smiled. "Good morning, sir." Daniel looked uncomfortable. "Henry, please sit down." Henry noticed a paper on the desk. "What is this?" Daniel slowly said. "The company is cutting costs. Your position has been removed." Henry became silent. After 25 years, his job was gone. He looked at his hands. The same hands that repaired everything. The same hands that worked every day. Now they had no place to go. Chapter 4. The Last Walk. Henry cleaned his small locker. Inside were old photos. A picture of his wife. A picture of his children. A thank you card from an employee. He touched the card. It said, "Thank you for always helping when nobody else did." Henry smiled. He realized he was poor in money, but rich in memories. Chapter 5. The Young Employee. A young worker named Jason Miller found Henry leaving. "Mr. Walker, are you leaving?" Henry nodded. Jason became sad. "You helped me when I first started." Henry smiled. "Jason, never forget. A small act of kindness can change someone's entire day." Jason asked, "What will you do now?" Henry answered, "I will find another way to be useful." Chapter 6. The Hard Days. After losing his job, life became harder. Henry applied everywhere. Some places rejected him because of his age. Some said, "We need younger workers." At night, Henry sat quietly. His wife Susan said, "Henry, you have spent your life helping others. Don't lose hope." Henry replied, "I'm not worried about myself. I'm worried about my family." Chapter 7. The Unexpected Call. One morning, Henry received a phone call. It was from Jason. "Mr. Walker, I have good news." Henry asked, "What happened?" Jason said, "I told the company owner about everything you did for people. They want to offer you a new position." Henry was shocked. "Why me?" Jason replied, "Because they realized they didn't lose a worker. They lost someone special." Chapter 8. The True Wealth. Henry got a new job. But this time, his story was different. People respected him. Young workers came to learn from him. He was no longer invisible. Years later, when Henry retired again, hundreds of people came to say goodbye. Someone asked, "What was your greatest achievement?" Henry smiled. "Not my job. My greatest achievement was making people feel valued." Ending message. A job can end suddenly. Money can disappear. Positions can change. But kindness, honesty, and a good heart can create a legacy that lasts forever.
The man behind the bank counter. In the beautiful town of Cedar Falls, Iowa, USA, there lived a man named Robert William Carter. Robert was 55 years old. For more than 30 years, he worked at a local bank called Wells Fargo. Every morning, before the sun came up, Robert woke up at 5:30. He made coffee, looked at old family photos, kissed his wife Linda Carter, and left for work. His life had a simple routine. Wake up, work, help people, return home. Many people believed Robert was just a bank employee, but the people who knew him understood something different. Robert was a man who carried hundreds of people's problems in his heart. Every customer who entered the bank knew him. "Good morning, Mr. Carter." "Hello, Robert. Thank you for helping me." These words were normal for him, but he never realized how much he meant to people. Chapter 2. A Young Dream. 30 years earlier, Robert was not a successful banker. He was a young man with no experience. His father had passed away, and Robert had to support his family. He applied for a small position at the bank. During his interview, the manager asked, "Why do you want this job?" Young Robert answered, "Because I want to learn how money works, but more importantly, I want to learn how people work." The manager was surprised. Most people talked about salary. Robert talked about people. He got the job. From his first day, he promised himself, "I will never make someone feel small because they have less money." That promise changed his entire life. Chapter 3. The People He Helped. Over the years, Robert met thousands of people. There was Sarah Williams, a single mother who came to the bank crying. She had no idea how to manage her bills. Robert sat with her for an hour. He created a plan. He taught her how to save. Years later, Sarah came back. She said, "Robert, because of you, my children have a better future." Then there was Daniel Brooks, a young man who wanted to start a small business. Everyone told Daniel he would fail, but Robert helped him understand finances. 10 years later, Daniel owned 3 successful stores. He came to the bank and said, "You believed in me when nobody did." Robert always answered, "I only showed you the door. You walked through it." Chapter 4. The Letter. One cold Monday morning, Robert arrived at the bank. Something felt different. The employees were quiet. His desk had a white envelope. Robert opened it. Inside was a letter. Dear Robert Carter, after 30 years of service, today will be your final working day. He stopped reading. His eyes became emotional. The words looked blurry. Retirement. A word he knew would come someday. But he was not ready. He looked around his office. The chair. The photos. The small coffee cup. Everything carried memories. Chapter 5. Goodbye. At noon, the employees organized a surprise. Robert walked into the conference room. Everyone was there. Young workers. Old customers. Friends. Family. His manager, Thomas Reed, stood up. Robert, you came here as an employee. You leave as a legend. People started clapping. A customer named Mary Johnson walked forward. She said, when my husband died, I was lost. Robert helped me rebuild my life. Another customer said, he helped my family buy our first home. Another said, he treated me like a person, not a number. Robert could not hold his tears. He finally understood. He was never just working at a bank. He was building a legacy. Chapter 6. The Empty Days. The first month after retirement was difficult. Robert woke up early, put on his work clothes, then remembered there was no office, no customers, no meetings. One morning, he sat alone drinking coffee. His wife Linda asked, are you missing your job? Robert looked outside. Yes. I spent 30 years knowing exactly what I needed to do. Now I don't know. Linda smiled. Maybe you spent 30 years preparing for your next chapter. Those words stayed in his mind. Chapter 7. As a new purpose. Robert started visiting schools. He taught young people about saving money. He helped families create financial plans. He volunteered at community programs. Slowly, he found happiness again. One day, a young boy named Ethan asked, Mr. Carter, were you rich when you worked at the bank? Robert smiled. No. The boy asked, then why do people respect you? Robert answered, because real wealth is not only what you keep, it is what you give. Chapter 8. The final lesson. 5 years later, Robert visited the bank. A young employee recognized him. Mr. Carter. Robert smiled. Do people still remember me? The employee laughed. Of course. People still tell stories about you. Robert looked at the building. The same doors. The same place. But he was different. He finally understood. A job has an ending. A career has an ending. But kindness has no ending. The world may forget your position, but it will remember how you made people feel. Ending message for voiceover. Sometimes we spend our whole life chasing success, but the greatest success is leaving behind a heart that people remember. Robert Carter retired from the bank, but his kindness continued working forever. In the quiet city of Madison, Wisconsin, USA, there lived a 55-year-old man named James Edward Wilson. For 28 years, James worked at a local bank called Bank of America. Every morning at exactly 7 o'clock, James wore his gray suit, fixed his tie, picked up his old leather bag, and walked toward the bank. The employees knew him as a serious man. The customers knew him as a kind man. But nobody knew the hidden pain he carried inside. James had spent his entire life working. He missed birthdays. He missed family trips. He missed many small moments with his children. He always told himself, after I earn enough money, I will spend time with my family. But years passed, and someday never arrived. Chapter 2. The Unexpected News. One winter morning, James entered the bank. Something felt unusual. The manager, Richard Thompson, was waiting near his office. James, come in. We need to talk. James sat down. Richard placed a folder on the table. James looked at it. What is this? Richard slowly answered. After many years of service, the bank is restructuring. Today will be your final day. The room became silent. James looked at his hands. The same hands that counted millions of dollars. The same hands that helped thousands of people. Now, they were shaking. So, after today, I don't have a job? Richard nodded. I am sorry, James. Chapter 3. The Goodbye. When James walked out of the office, everyone was waiting. His coworkers, his customers, the people he helped. A young employee named Kevin Parker walked to him. Mr. Wilson, you taught me everything. James smiled. Remember, Kevin, numbers are important, but people are more important. An old customer named Robert Miller came forward. James, when my wife passed away, you helped me manage everything. You were there when my family needed someone. James looked around. He realized something. His job was ending, but his impact was still alive. Chapter 4. The Empty House. That evening, James returned home. His wife Susan Wilson opened the door. She smiled. You are home early. James looked down. I don't work there anymore. Susan was shocked. After a few seconds, she hugged him. James, you worked so hard for this family. Now maybe it is time to live for yourself. But James felt lost. For 28 years, his identity was his job. Without it, who was he? Chapter 5. The Old Notebook. A few days later, James cleaned his office room at home. He found an old notebook. It belonged to him from when he was young. On the first page, he had written, My dream is to help people. James smiled. He forgot his first dream. He spent years chasing a career, but forgot the reason he started. Chapter 6. The New Beginning. James started a small community program. He helped young people understand money. He taught them how to save. How to avoid mistakes. How to build a better future. One young man named Daniel asked, "Mr. Wilson, why do you do this for free?" James smiled. "Because someone once helped me without asking for anything." Chapter 7. The Surprise Visit. Months later, James visited his old bank. The new manager came to him. "James, we have something for you." They showed him a wall. On it was a photo of James.
Before we start this emotional story, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications for more powerful life stories. A poor man may not have a big house. A poor man may not have expensive clothes. But a good heart can be worth more than millions. This is the story of a 55-year-old man whose job ended after many years, but his kindness changed everything. Chapter 1. The Man Nobody Noticed. In a small town near Dallas, Texas, USA, lived a man named Samuel Robert Harris. Samuel was 55 years old. He worked as a security guard at a large corporate building. For 22 years, Samuel sat near the entrance every day. He opened the doors. He greeted employees. He helped visitors. But most people only saw his uniform. They never saw his struggles. Samuel lived in a small rented house with his wife Maria Harris. Their furniture was old. Their car was old. Their life was simple. But their hearts were full of love. Chapter 2. The Dream He Never Chased. When Samuel was young, he wanted to become a teacher. But life changed. His father became sick. Samuel had to leave school and work. He told himself, "One day, I will continue my dream." But years passed. Bills came. Family responsibilities grew. His dream stayed hidden. Still, Samuel never became bitter. He always said, "Life may not give us everything we want, but we can still give goodness to others." Chapter 3. The Morning Everything Changed. One rainy morning, Samuel arrived at work. The building manager, Mr. William Parker, called him. Samuel walked into the office. "Good morning, sir." William looked uncomfortable. "Samuel, I have difficult news." Samuel sat down. The manager said, "The company hired a new security system. We no longer need your position." Samuel looked at the floor. After 22 years, his job was gone. He quietly asked, "When should I leave?" William looked down. "Today." Chapter 4. His Final Goodbye. Samuel walked back to his small desk. He looked at his chair, his old coffee cup, his notebook, the little things that carried 22 years of memories. A young employee named Kevin Johnson came running. "Mr. Harris, is it true?" Samuel smiled. "Yes, Kevin. Today is my last day." Kevin became emotional. "You always helped me when I had problems." Samuel replied, "Never forget, Kevin. A person is remembered by how they treat others." Chapter 5. The Secret Everyone Discovered. After Samuel left, something happened. Employees started talking. They remembered all the things he did. The time he stayed late to help someone. The time he helped a lost child find their parents. The time he paid for a worker's lunch when they had no money. People realized they had been walking past a great man every day. Chapter 6. The Difficult Months. After losing his job, Samuel searched everywhere. He went from company to company. But many rejected him. "You are too old. We need younger people." Those words hurt. At night, he sat quietly. Maria asked, "Are you okay?" Samuel smiled. "I lost my job, but I did not lose myself." Chapter 7. The Unexpected Visitor. One evening, someone knocked on Samuel's door. It was Kevin. Samuel was surprised. "Kevin? What are you doing here?" Kevin smiled. "I came because I found something." He handed Samuel a letter. Samuel opened it. It was an offer letter. A company wanted to hire him as a training supervisor. Samuel looked confused. "Why would they choose me?" Kevin answered, "Because they heard your story." Chapter 8. The New Beginning. The new company did not hire Samuel because of his age. They hired him because of his experience. He started teaching young employees how to be responsible, how to respect people, how to stay humble. The young workers loved him. They called him Mr. Sam. Chapter 9. Years later. Many years later, Samuel retired. At his retirement ceremony, hundreds of people came. One person asked, "Mr. Harris, what is your biggest success?" Samuel smiled. "I was never rich. I never owned a big house. But I helped people feel important. That is my wealth." Final message. Sometimes the world measures people by money, position, and power. But real value is hidden in kindness. A job can end in one day, but a good heart can live forever. Emotional story. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications for more inspiring stories. Sometimes the world only sees a person's old clothes and simple life, but it does not see the sacrifices hidden behind their smile. This is the story of a poor 55-year-old man whose final day at work changed everyone's heart. Chapter 1. The Man Who Arrived Before Everyone. In a small town in Michigan, USA, there lived a 55-year-old man named Frank William Cooper. Frank worked as a warehouse worker at a large distribution company. Every morning at 5 a.m., before the sun appeared, Frank arrived at work. The building was empty. The lights were off. But Frank was there. He cleaned the area, checked the machines, and prepared everything for the employees. Most workers arrived at 8 a.m. They saw everything ready. But they never knew who made it happen. Frank always worked quietly. He never complained. Chapter 2. The Life Nobody Knew. Frank lived in a small old house with his wife Helen Cooper. Their roof leaked when it rained. Their kitchen was old. Their car often stopped on the road. But Frank never spent money on himself. Every month, he saved a little. Not for a vacation. Not for luxury. For his daughter Emma Cooper. Emma had a dream of becoming a nurse. Frank always told her, "Your dream should be bigger than my struggles." Chapter 3. The Sudden Ending. After 25 years at the company, Frank received a message. His supervisor, Mr. Richard Adams, wanted to see him. Frank entered the office. Richard looked uncomfortable. "Frank, I don't know how to say this." Frank smiled. "Just tell me." Richard took a deep breath. "The company is changing. We are replacing some old positions with machines." Frank understood. His job was ending. After 25 years. No warning. No celebration. Just a goodbye. Chapter 4. The Last Walk Around the Warehouse. Frank walked through the warehouse one last time. He touched the old machine he repaired many times. He looked at the workers. Many of them never knew how many times Frank stayed late to fix problems. A young worker named Tom Wilson stopped him. "Mr. Cooper, are you leaving?" Frank nodded. Tom asked, "Who will help us now?" Frank smiled. "Someone else will come. Just remember to help each other." Chapter 5. The Old Notebook. Before leaving, Frank opened his locker. Inside was a small notebook. The first page said, "Things I want to do for my family." He read the old pages. A new pair of shoes for Emma. A better house for Helen. A peaceful life. Frank realized. He spent his whole life trying to build a future. Chapter 6. The Discovery. After Frank left, the company manager found something. A report. It showed that Frank had saved the company thousands of dollars over the years. He had prevented accidents. He had trained new workers. He had protected the company many times. Richard looked at the report and became silent. He said, "We lost a worker today." "No. We lost a part of this company." Chapter 7. The Unexpected Return. 2 weeks later, Frank received a call. It was Richard. "Frank, can you come to the office?" Frank thought maybe there was paperwork. When he arrived, everyone was waiting. Richard walked toward him. "We made a mistake." Frank looked confused. Richard continued, "We don't want you as a worker anymore." Frank was surprised. "Then?" Richard smiled. "We want you as a mentor. Teach the next generation." Chapter 8. The Man Who Became a Legend. Frank accepted. Now he did not work because he needed money. He worked because he had wisdom to share. Young workers came to learn from him. They learned patience, honesty, hard work. Years later, when Frank finally retired, hundreds of people attended. His daughter Emma, now a nurse, stood beside him. She said, "My father never gave me a rich life." She paused. "He gave me a meaningful life." Frank smiled with tears. Final message. Never judge someone by their job, clothes, or bank account. Some people who have the least money carry the greatest hearts. A job can end, but the impact of a good person never ends. The end. Before we begin this emotional story, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications for more inspiring life stories. A person's true value is not written on their paycheck. Sometimes the quietest person in the room has the biggest heart. This is the story of a poor 55-year-old man whose final day at work changed the way everyone saw him. Chapter 1. The Night Worker. In the city of Chicago, Illinois, USA, lived a 55-year-old man named Edward James Parker. Edward worked as a night cleaner at a large hotel. Every night when rich guests slept in comfortable rooms, Edward was walking through empty hallways, cleaning, repairing, helping. Most guests never knew his name. They only saw a cleaner. But Edward had a heart bigger than his job title. Chapter 2. His Simple Life. Edward lived in a small apartment with his wife Rose Parker. The walls were old. The furniture was simple. But their home was full of love. Edward's biggest happiness was his grandson Noah. Noah wanted to become a doctor. Edward always told him, "Never let your situation decide your future." Noah asked, "Grandpa, why do you work so hard?" Edward smiled, "Because someone has to build a road for the next person." Chapter 3. The Bad News. One night, Edward arrived for his shift. His supervisor, Mark Johnson, called him. "Edward, come to my office." Edward entered. Mark looked nervous. "Edward, the hotel is changing." Edward waited. "We are using new machines. Your position is being removed." Edward looked down. After 20 years, his job was ending. He quietly asked, "Can I finish my last shift?" Mark nodded. Chapter 4. The Final Night. Edward walked through the hotel, room by room, floor by floor. He remembered everything. The guests he helped, the employees he supported, the problems he solved. A young employee named Chris Miller saw him. "Mr. Parker, are you leaving?" Edward smiled. "Yes, Chris." Chris asked, "Who will teach us now?" Edward answered, "Anyone can teach you how to work, but always learn how to care." Chapter 5. The Forgotten Wallet. During his final shift, Edward found a wallet. Inside was thousands of dollars and important documents. Nobody was around. Edward could have kept it. His family needed money. But he immediately gave it to the hotel manager. The next morning, the owner arrived. The wallet belonged to him. He asked, "Who found this?" Everyone pointed to Edward. Chapter 6. The Owner's Surprise. The hotel owner, Robert Anderson, called Edward. "Why didn't you keep it?" Edward smiled. "Because it was not mine." Robert became quiet. He had worked with many people, but he had rarely seen honesty like this. He asked, "How long have you worked here?" Edward replied, 20 years. Robert was shocked. "And nobody gave you a promotion?" Edward smiled. "I was happy doing honest work." Chapter 7. A New Offer. Robert gathered all employees. He said, "Today we almost lost the wrong person." Everyone became silent. Robert continued, "Edward will not leave as a cleaner. He will become our training manager." Edward was shocked. "I don't have a college degree," Robert answered. "But you have something more valuable: experience and character." Chapter 8. The Real Rich Man. Years later, Edward retired. At his retirement ceremony, hundreds of people came. His grandson Noah, now a doctor, hugged him. "Grandpa, you gave me everything." Edward smiled. "I gave you advice. You created your future." Noah replied, "No, you gave me belief." Edward looked around. He finally understood. He was never poor. He had love, respect, and a legacy. Ending message. Money can buy a house, but kindness builds a home. Jobs can disappear, but good character stays forever. The end. This is the final chapter of a man who spent his whole life working quietly. But on his last day, the whole world finally saw his true value. Chapter 1. The Last Morning. In Denver, Colorado, USA, a 55-year-old man named William Joseph Carter woke up before sunrise. For 30 years, William worked as a delivery driver for a large company. His old truck, his simple uniform, his tired hands. These were the signs of his life. Every morning, his wife Mary Carter made him coffee. She looked at him and said, "William, you have worked your whole life. I hope people remember your kindness." William smiled. "I don't need people to remember me. I just want to know I did the right thing." Chapter 2. The Unexpected Letter. When William arrived at work, his manager Stephen Brown called him. William, please come to my office. William entered. Stephen looked sad. He placed a letter on the table. William opened it. His eyes became quiet. The letter said, "Your position has been removed. Today will be your final working day." After 30 years, it was over. Chapter 3. The Last Delivery. The company asked William to complete one final delivery. He drove his old truck through the city. Every street carried memories. A house where he helped an old woman. A family where he carried heavy boxes inside. A child who always waved at him. William realized he was not just delivering packages. He was delivering kindness. Chapter 4. The Hidden Truth. When William returned, he saw everyone gathered. He thought it was goodbye. But Stephen walked forward. "William, we discovered something." William looked confused. Stephen held a folder. "For 30 years, you received hundreds of complaints?" William became worried. Then Stephen smiled. "No, hundreds of compliments." Everyone became silent. Stephen continued. "You helped customers when nobody asked you to. You protected packages. You treated strangers like family." Chapter 5. The Final Surprise. The company owner, Mr. Richard Adams, came forward. He said, "William, today you were supposed to leave as an employee, but we want you to stay as a trainer." William was shocked. "Why me?" Richard answered, "Because we can teach people how to work, but we cannot teach everyone how to care." Chapter 6. His Greatest Gift. William accepted the offer. For the next few years, he trained young workers. He taught them, "Speed is important, but kindness is unforgettable." Years later, when William finally retired, hundreds of people came. His wife Mary held his hand. She said, "You spent your life helping others." William smiled. "And they gave me a life worth remembering." Final message. Some people leave a job and disappear, but some people leave behind memories that never disappear. Your title can end. Your salary can stop, but a good heart never retires. The end, Red Heart.